Hello, and welcome to our new episode of the Otafest Foodcast. I'm Angelo, and I'm here with Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
No name shenanigans this week.
Nope.
We've got news. Come join us for our next Otafest Pocket event. Otafest presents Cosplay Compassion, a charity fundraiser for Mamas Calgary, happening April 6th at 11 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the Eau Claire Market atrium. See Otafest's Facebook page for more details. Now, how many more times do you think you can go to Eau Claire Market before it no longer exists?
Yeah, okay, so that's what I was like excited for. I was like, okay, they're shutting down Eau Claire Market. It's going to be completely abandoned. So, do you remember when New Horizons Mall opened up and people were just going there because the spectacle of an abandoned mall was cool? That was a brand new mall that was freshly constructed and very cool to see in its starting up phase. Cool. But Eau Claire Market has been around for like 30, 40 years? Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Because they built Eau Claire to go over a swamp.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So I have a neighbor who remembers when they built Eau Claire, and she said Eau Claire was built to exist in a space that was unusable. It was a swamp.
Wow.
And so they built Eau Claire. It was the very first attempt by the city to renew spaces in downtown Calgary. And this was in the 80s, 90s. Like, that's insane. I remember as a kid going to the IMAX theater and watching the Gorilla documentary.
Oh my God.
That was something we did as a class. Like, our whole class just got into a school bus and we drove down to Eau Claire and we got to go in the IMAX theater, and it was crazy because the screen was so darn big. And like, I'm little. I'm like, what, 10, maybe even less than that, probably like 7 or 6 years old. And I'm just like, this screen is wild.
I don't know what it is, but I mean, when I was half the size I am now, movie theater screens definitely seemed like they are twice as big as they are now.
And even so, I think even to today's standards, I think IMAX theaters still have pretty big screens in comparison. They're tall. They're how many stories tall? Like,
oh, I don't know, like what, 2 or 3?
Something like that, but like,
I don't know.
They're big.
They're big.
And they're impressive. And then the IMAX theater shut down at Eau Claire, and I was like, oh no, but there's still a theater upstairs. Cool. Still some game machines upstairs. This was when they had like an arcade up there still.
Oh yeah. I have very fond memories of going to Eau Claire for different movies. I know that I saw Promare there. I definitely saw one of the Madoka movies there.
Nice.
Oh my God. There were a couple other anime screenings, and those types of movies at Eau Claire were just such a blast because you walk up the stairs towards the movie theater, you see a ton of nerds out in front, a lot of them in cosplay. You find your friends, you see like, I see an Aussie J. Lee. Don't you know you're banned from Otafest?
You're not allowed to be here, Aussie J. Lee.
And it's such a great time. Dio and I walked past it the other week, and then we realized, wait a minute, we can go there to see Dune 2.
That's where you went to go see Dune 2?
That's where we went. So Dune 2 was our last movie experience in Eau Claire. I very highly doubt there's going to be another one.
I now highly regret having tickets to go see Dune 2 at a different theater. Because I am going to see Dune 2 tonight. And then you and I can finally talk all the nerdy stuff about everything that happens in this movie. Without the spoilers and the worry about ruining or like coloring how someone's going to watch a movie or experience a movie before they've even seen it. So, now I really regret not going to. I should have gotten tickets to Eau Claire.
It was a fantastic day for me and Dio. We did a little bit of day drinking. This was on St. Patty's Day.
Oh.
And so the two breweries that Dio lives near, they'd swapped up their food menus, right?
Oh.
So we wanted to go to each brewery, try out their new food, have some beers, and then we went to Eau Claire. We took the train down to Eau Claire, walked over there, and we got some beer and popcorn as concessions, and we just vibed watching Dune. It was fantastic.
The last thing I watched in that theater was a couple of years. Oh, actually, no. This is before pandemic, so this would have been at least 2019. The Eau Claire Theater has a penchant for showing recordings of theater. Just like straight up theater performances that are done in the Linden Theater or like in Her Majesty the Queen's Theater or like, you know, any really big theatrical productions that happen in the UK. And we got to watch A Midsummer Night's Dream, and Queen Titania was being played by the lovely actress. She was Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones.
All right.
They had changed the script a little bit. Because in the script, the king makes Titania fall in love with an ass, a donkey, by a form of like magical trickery. But in this one, they've swapped the roles. Titania is now taking on most of the king's lines, and the king is now the one who's falling in love with a donkey. And I suspect they did some of this in order to, well, one, play with the script. Shakespearean scripts are very much set in stone. You can only reinterpret them in so many ways. But when you start role swapping people, it gets a lot more fun. But the second one, I suspect, is because when you role swap two gendered roles, it gets funny. Like, funny in a, this is far more contemporary than if it had been the other way around.
Oh.
And it's not something that you would realize unless you actually took the script and you picked it apart. But that was the last thing I saw at Eau Claire Theater. And I think I also saw some Russian ballet.
Oh, my.
They had recorded a live performance of a fantastically skilled Russian dance troupe. And they were doing the one that has the sugar plum fairy dance in it.
Ooh,
the Nutcracker?
That sounds correct. Yeah, Sugar Plum Fairy, that has to be Nutcracker.
So, the Nutcracker, but they had recorded it as a not Christmas event, and because it was a recorded event, the cameras were able to capture so much more like facial expression, which is something you don't really get when you're watching something with a stage experience. So that was really cool. And like, that theater had a penchant for showing things like that for a long time. And now I don't know where I'm going to go for it when they're gone. That's
something that's really special about, I hate to say it, that's something really special about low traffic kind of junky theaters, you know?
Older theaters, yeah.
Because they don't have to appeal to the mass market. And in fact, explicitly because appealing to the mass market is bad for business for them. They do much better by drawing in a very niche crowd with very specific sort of event movies. Like, that's why a lot of the anime movies happened at Eau Claire. Because if you had an anime movie at every single theater in the city, there would not be a single full theater. Whereas if you put it at Eau Claire will have a full house for every single run of that movie.
It's true.
And I mean, I imagine the Shakespearean play and the Russian ballet was very similar. You can probably count the number of fans in a city of 1.4 million people who would take time out of their day for that specifically in maybe the hundreds. Maybe 1,000.
I really enjoyed watching those because only the diehard niche fans would go.
Yeah.
Right? People who went to go watch that rendition of A Midsummer Night's Dream either A, really loved that actress because damn, did she steal the show or what? Or they just really liked Shakespearean theater.
That's
possibly
fantastic.
Contemporary theater. And like the people who were there, like, yes, they were still being respectfully quiet, but you could tell they were like commenting on things back and forth, like whenever there was a little bit of a lull, or like during the little intermission break that was in the middle. They kept the intermission that usually happens during a theater show. So everyone kind of like stood up, stretched a little bit, and there were so many people saying like, "Did you see what they did? Did you notice this?" And it was so clear that people really enjoyed what they were watching and that they specifically came to experience that thing. So yes, absolutely. When you draw that specific crowd to a theater to watch something very niche, it really brings out so many passions.
It's definitely a place where there are theaters in town that can absorb that role. Off the top of my head, I think it's Globe Theater downtown, where they frequently play a lot of old movies. I remember seeing Old Boy there. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fantastic experience. But I will miss it. I will miss going to Eau Claire for that. Now,
I will too.
The rest of the mall, while me and Dio were there, it was very empty. Most of the stores are already closed. I think only like 4 or 5 are left. But it is a rough looking mall, to be fair. It shows 40 years of constant use.
It hasn't been touched up. Like, if you've ever been to McEwen Hall at the University of Calgary, the way it used to look versus the way it looks now, like, I remember when they still had those 90s colored painted railings.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember, like, that extremely iconic image from the 80s and 90s, that paper cup with, like, that purple and teal green
the
pattern
90s
on it?
swirl. The 90s swish.
The 90s swirl. So those colors were used to paint the Mac Hall rails.
I can't imagine that.
All the railings around, like, any of the second floor, anywhere there's railings, really.
McEwen
So,
Hall
like,
up here looking like a fucking McDonald's. That's kind of hilarious.
That's what it looked like. And then they gave it this really shiny stainless steel makeover, like years ago. And now it looks a lot newer, a little bit more sterile, but like
it's
a little more modern.
It looks like a university.
Sure. But I bet if you look in like specific corners of the older buildings at the university, there are still areas from the 80s that haven't been touched up nicely.
But the way that you mentioned that is the exact vibe that Eau Claire has, and that's kind of what I'm going to miss about it. It doesn't feel explicitly like just a store. It feels like... It actually does feel like if you took a McDonald's play place from the 90s and turned it into a mall.
Yes, but like... That's why I like Eau Claire. It remains untouched from the ravages of time other than, wear and tear. It still looks very much the way it did when it was first opened. Like those railings, the green paint, the floor I don't think has even really been touched up other than the odd washing and like repolishing maybe.
Exactly.
It's a testament to that era.
Even the outside looks like that.
Yeah, even the outside looks like that. So here's the plan. I'm going to bring a whole bunch of Instaxes with me, and I'm just going to shoot like lots and lots of photos of this place so that I can remember it when it's gone. Because when they tear it down, there's no going back.
Very, very fair, yeah. Like I don't think there's another building in Calgary quite like that has that aesthetic.
Not anymore.
No.
I mean... I'm sure there used to be. I'm sure Sunridge Mall used to have a bit more of that vibe. I'm sure any of the older malls might have borrowed a lot of that. But because they're malls and they're supposed to be maintained a little more often than that... They're supposed to be
more of like signs of the time. The point of a mall, like it or hate it, is to inspire capitalism. And so they want to attract the current fashion. They want to inspire the current fashion of things. Like when you walk through Chinook Mall, because I feel like it is the best example of it in the city, even in the 15 years that I've lived in Calgary, the vibe of Chinook Mall has changed several times.
Yes, especially since they kept adding more chunks to it.
Yeah, when I came here the first time, when I first moved to Calgary, it still had a little bit of that 90s vibe left over. At this point, all of that is gone. It feels like
finally removed it.
Yeah, it feels like every store that you walk by is just big glass windows with stuff inside of it. That is the style of the time.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this one up because I know we've talked about it too. The core downtown It didn't used to be like super 90s, but it like the gardens, the Devonian gardens upstairs were very 90s.
Oh, really?
Very 90s. Like, let's not talk about those 80s colors we talked about, right? The interior of the Devonian gardens was completely sealed off because they maintained really high humidity. It was really like misty and foggy in there sometimes. They had, big wood paneled, and I mean wood paneled. If you imagine the really old chunks of Mac Hall that still remain with some of that old wooden paneling that's hidden in some of the corners.
Yeah.
Those were everywhere in the Devonian gardens.
Wow.
Everywhere.
Like, on one hand, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes
but
sense.
It had a very different 80s feel to it. And now the Devonian Gardens is a lot closer looking to the new Mac Hall.
Yes.
Or to Chinook Mall. Like, the way that they've been modernized and renovated over time has removed all of that 90s-ness. And, like, love it or hate it, right? Like, you could say that they're removing something that's extremely iconic to that era, and you're going to miss it. But you could also say it does look like they gave it a bit of a facelift.
It does. If I go into Devonian Gardens, it is hard to place the era where it was built, except for the fact that they have plaques all over the place saying exactly when it was built. Like, Devonian Gardens, I don't think it would be something that could be built today. No company wants to spend that kind of money for what is otherwise non-productive commercial space. Even though I feel like the fact that Devonian Gardens is there brings more people to that mall.
I agree. Like, there's a certain degree of needing to attract people who just want to spend time in a nice space.
Yeah.
Like,
that was the original concept of malls back in, like, the 40s, 50s. The idea of a mall was to be, like, almost like a third space where people could have, like, an indoor town hall almost that just happened to be a commercial space too, right? Except every single mall that's ever been built is like, we can put stores here. We can put more stores here. There's space for green space. We could put plants there. But what if we put a store there instead?
I did notice a very heavy shift in, like, the 2000s, 2010s to, like, remove all sitting space and just make it as densely packed as possible. But I have noticed we've started shifting back. Like, we've been putting more sitting spaces into our malls again.
Thank God.
Yes, thank God. But, like, I think about, when I was, like, 14, what I don't have a whole lot of money to my name. What can I do with my friends? Take the bus, go to a nice mall, go hang out there for a day. I don't have to buy anything. I have just enough money to buy myself a giant pretzel to feed myself for lunch, and then I'm going to go home.
Yeah. Malls actively want to discourage that behavior. They don't like bands of roving teenagers loitering.
But loitering was so much fun when you weren't actually being a problem to anybody.
I know, right?
It was just nice to not be in the house. Like, okay, when you're 14, if you want to hang out with a friend, you have 3 choices. You go to their house, they come to your house, or you go outside. And if outside is a mall which is shaded from the elements, I'm going to choose the mall.
Exactly. And I mean, that's... As much as I like to rag on malls for being monuments to fucking capitalist greed, I still think they're very interesting, even if you don't want to buy anything. Like, especially as a kid, I would, like, walk into Radio Shack at the time, because Radio Shack still existed in Canada. I would look at the different electronic components and think of what I could build with them.
I used to do that,
I would go into, like, the game stores or the toy stores and see, like, hey, what exists? What are things that be?
I genuinely enjoyed just window shopping. Just seeing things that are currently the thing.
It's really interesting as a way to learn that things exist. There are so many products out there that I strongly believe probably don't need to exist, but the fact that they do is hilarious. Like, half of the things that work that exist in a Spencer's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or back when I worked at the source, we had these speakers that shut water up to the beat of the music.
Oh my gosh, I remember those.
Yes, they were ridiculously hot sellers. We could not keep them in stock long enough. People loved them.
I bet that would still sell.
Probably.
I bet people would still want that.
Now, having that said, they were really shitty speakers and they would frequently break. I think the first year we carried them, a third of them, the mineral oil, because it wasn't really water, it was mineral oil, leaked out. And so we had to like, okay, this box is moisture, this box is moisture, that box is moisture. Write them off immediately. Don't sell those.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they are a horrible product, but they're really cool.
All right, so I guess we're gonna Kickstarter a really cool waterproof speaker that does exactly that.
No, now that you say waterproof specifically, an awesome sort of thing, a floating Bluetooth speaker for in the pool that takes the pool water and shoots it up like a fountain, like
there you go.
5, 6, 10 feet in the air. That would be awesome. That would be super cool.
To the beat of your favorite tunes.
Yes. Get like 2 or 3 of them in the pool at a time, and you got yourself a water show, baby.
Okay. Well, that's our next Kickstarter gig.
Hell
right
yeah.
There. Yep.
Hell yeah.
But speaking of really fun ideas and sort of capitalist greed, I guess. So Calgary's been doing the food and drink experience, which is what it's called now. I keep wanting to call it Dine Out Calgary because that's what it used to be called many years ago.
Instead, it's
incarnations of it.
YYCEXP.
Yes.
And I think it's ending before this podcast goes out.
Yeah, but I would really like to recap some of the things that we have seen. So the food and drink experience, in short, is a whole bunch of restaurants in Calgary. And I mean a lot. Like, I think there's at least 60 in Calgary.
That sounds about right.
They all say, okay, we're going to participate in this festival of sorts. We're all going to make fixed menus for either $45 dinners or $75 dinners, depending on how many courses and how fancy.
Some of them were only $35 too.
Some of them were only $35. There were, I think, $15 or $25 lunches. I didn't do any of the lunches, though.
I didn't do any of the lunches either. I only did dinner menus.
Yeah. Basically, it's a bunch of free advertising to a whole bunch of restaurants. Actually, you know what? Now that I say that, I'm not sure it's free. I don't know if there's a participation fee.
I don't know, but I will say that it worked. This got me to go to 3 different restaurants that I never would have gone to otherwise.
And they were all good.
I had a fantastic time. So Nancy and I had been talking about this for probably 2 weeks because we wanted to get together. We wanted to eat some food. We wanted to have a great time. And I was looking through them and seeing, okay, what do I think that all of us might like? What do I think would be interesting flavors?
What makes your little Italian heart beat?
Exactly. And so my first choice was this Brazilian steakhouse, Minas. And you said that it might be too much meat to put you in a food coma. So me and Dio went there on our own, and it was fantastic. It was so good. I'd never had Brazilian barbecue before, and I loved every bit of it. But the first course was something called pão de queijo, which literally means cheese bread in Portuguese.
Yes.
It's not bread. It is made of tapioca starch instead of flour.
It is, and they're really fluffy.
Imagine you had like a little ball, a little timbit that feels like bread, but then you bite into it and it's like cheese mochi.
Basically.
It was a life-changing experience.
Right.
I could eat 100 of those.
And I hope you don't eat exactly 100 of those. Starch still does do a little bit of expanding in your stomach. But
oh, yeah.
So back when we used to do a lot of Brazilian barbecue, we found out that you can make these yourself very easily at home.
It's super easy.
Super easy. The only problem is that you have to be really careful how you make them, because otherwise they might stick really
they're
badly.
very sticky. It is a sticky, sticky dough.
So Angelo tells me a little while later, we figured out how to make them, and we made so many, and I ate all of them.
So the big thing is tapioca starch, right? Mm-hmm. Dio and I go to the store. We look in the baking aisle, and we're like, "Oh, there's no tapioca starch here. The space is cleared out." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, though. They might have more in the international aisle. We go there and we pick up one bag. Perfect. We pick up some mozzarella because the recipe called for Parmesan and mozzarella. Now, Parmesan, to my understanding, is not Brazilian. But you know what? I'll let it slide. We get back to Dio's house. I noticed that we're actually a little bit lower on Parmesan than I thought. So I had to change the Parmesan to mozzarella ratios. And so also because of that, because mozzarella is a little bit of a wetter cheese, I was like, okay, I'll also reduce the milk by like a quarter cup. Even though I did that, it was still a very sticky and it seemed almost like a runny dough. But I was like, fuck it, we ball. And they came out gorgeous looking. They came out so good. Now I had to make a second batch, so I was like, I'll try a thing. I'll put the dough in the fridge while the first batch is cooking. And the second batch was a much better ball-like shape.
Yes.
But they were, no matter what, they came out, they were about the right size, maybe a little bit bigger. They had the exact kind of texture and color on the outside that you would want. And you bite into them, and they're gooey, and they're cheesy, and they're just, ooh. I saw a different recipe that included garlic, and I want to try that.
Yeah, I was like, so have you seen the garlic one yet? So apparently you have. I'll let you in on a little secret. I use tapioca starch instead of cornstarch whenever I'm thickening sauces.
Oh, really? Do you use it the exact same way?
Pretty much. You'd make a slurry, just thicken it up. Like, you don't have to make a roux with this. It's just make a slurry, put it in, cook it until it thickens, you're good. The thing about tapioca starch is that it doesn't do the thing cornstarch does, which is if you keep cooking it and you accidentally go a little over, it starts getting runny again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the emulsion breaks, it gets a little bit grainy, and it's like, eh.
Yeah.
So tapioca starch doesn't do that?
No.
Wow, I learned.
But you have to be careful not to add too much. You can
Otherwise
add too much tapioca starch.
Yeah. Well, same with cornstarch. You can absolutely add too much.
It makes a really great gravy, though.
Ooh, I want to try that next time I make teriyaki sauce.
Do it? Yeah. Perfect use case.
Absolutely. Nice.
But yeah. One of the other places I went to, we actually ended up trying out like a super baller one. We went to Rouge one night. So Rouge obviously is a French name. They do a lot of French food.
Yes, inspired by Rouge the Bat from Sonic the Hedgehog, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's it. So they feature a lot of like more processed. Like the French, when you look at the way that they treat their vegetables and their sauces, there's a lot more processing, there's a lot more cooking down, there's a little bit more structure to like how to process vegetables. But because we're in springish late winter, I say that very loosely because we all are kind of in like fake winter number whatever and fake spring number whatever.
We just passed full spring and now I think we're in third winter.
I think this is third winter, but it's also kind of fake winter by this point because technically it's officially spring now.
That means that it's I can't think of it.
Practice winter.
It is.
It's practice winter.
Practice winter. Practice for next year.
I guess. Okay. Sure. So because of the season, a lot of the things that they were focusing on were things like carrots, beets, root vegetables. Okay. And a lot of the dishes very heavily featured that, and they were really, really, really good. But the star of the night, actually, no, it's hard for me to say. There were two stars. It was the dessert and it was the main. But okay, so the main came on a very wide platter, but it had a really deep dip in the middle, and there was a perfectly sized puff pastry to cover the dip. So there's this gigantic, like size of my face, gigantic sheet of puff pastry. Exactly perfect, perfectly puffed, perfectly baked. And under it, when you like slide it off to the side a little bit, was a tenderloin beef bourguignon.
Nice.
Oh my God. That is the most perfect bourguignon I have ever had. It was exactly the right level of salt. You could really taste the red wine that was in it. It had the little pearl onions. There was a lot of garlic in it. There was mushrooms. There was
garlic, my love.
Oh, it was so good. So good. I was sad there was only that much. And I was full
Now you
by
have to
then.
go again next time and be like, give me an entire pot.
Oh, God.
An entire pot of the bourguignon.
It was so good. And like, you know, a lot of the time, people who are meat connoisseurs, they will tell you it is a waste to put tenderloin in something that is stewed or braised because tenderloin shines as a steak.
It does. Tenderloin is fantastic as a steak. I fully appreciate tenderloin just as the meat.
Yeah. But holy
But
cow.
tenderloin is always fantastic.
It was so good. Like, it had absorbed all the flavors. It wasn't braised to the point where, you know how when you over braise beef, sometimes
When you
it gets dry?
overcook tenderloin, overcooking tenderloin is usually the only way to screw it up.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, if it's still tender, it's not screwed up.
Well, it's really hard to screw up tenderloin, actually, because even if you do overcook it, it's still good. It's just overcooked.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't overcooked. It was perfect. It turns
Nice.
out they use a lot of sous vide.
Oh, really?
The dish that came before the bourguignon was actually Arctic char. But the Arctic char, this is the first time I've ever had it like this. They sous vide'd the Arctic char. And so it comes, the texture doesn't even resemble fish anymore. It's just this really, really rich, almost creamy fish. And you're like, this tastes
Wow.
like fish, but it does not have the texture of fish that I'm used to. The Arctic char, as much as it was great, does not beat the bourguignon. The bourguignon wins hands down. It was so very perfectly cooked in every aspect. And just the giant puff pastry was just so good.
When you said Arctic char, I'm like, I know that's fish, but I have no idea what that fish looks like.
Oh.
And in my mind, I'm just thinking Char Aznable from Gundam in a red winter coat. But then I looked up a picture of the fish, and they have this bright red belly. And so that's just so perfect.
That is a
That's-
little bit perfect.
They are the fish version of Char Aznable.
Apparently. I didn't even know that. I actually didn't know that's what char looked like on the outside.
Ah,
So that was standout number 1. Standout number 2 was the chocolate terrine that they made. They made
Oh.
a triangular shaped chocolate terrine, and it used some chocolate cake and a mousse and something else, but goddamn, it was good.
nice.
It was a perfect meal. It was just so rich that my stomach had to pay for it for like a day.
Oh my god.
Like, my taste buds
I
were
know
happy,
that-
my stomach wasn't.
The desserts frequently made the decisions for us. Like, there were the 2 restaurants that we went to together.
Yeah.
And it was the desserts that made those ones stand out.
Seriously.
There was the cannoli that we had at Pizza Culture.
That was so creamy. I was really sad I
It
couldn't
was
finish it.
fantastic. It was so good. That was a big cannoli. That was a big cannoli. The pizza there was fantastic too. Like, I've had a lot of great pizza in Calgary. And wood-fired pizza, like, the way that you sit in this restaurant, the wood is stacked up on the wall, and it is labeled. It is BC cherry wood. And that flavor, that smoky flavor, comes through in the pizza.
Yeah, it's so good.
It is fantastic.
And they do very adamantly import a lot of their ingredients from Italy. So it is the 00 flour from Italy. Any of the meats are usually from Italy. Any of the cheeses are usually from Italy too. They had this one time where they had burrata, and they just hollowed out the inside of a tomato and stuffed it full of cheese and just baked it for you.
Oh my god.
They don't do it anymore,
That
but
sounds amazing.
god damn, it was good. And then for the remainder of that supply of burrata, they actually just started putting it on like daily special pizzas, and it was so good. Sean was so very, very sad when they stopped having burrata anymore because they ran out. That was it for the season.
The brewery near our house, Tail Gunners, they've got burrata pizza.
So good.
And the cannoli, it was like pistachio cannoli. The ricotta was rich and creamy. It was amazing. There was a little sprig of mint on the middle. Amazing.
Yeah, that mint was so
And then our third, and for you and I, our last YYC menu, we went to our daily Brett.
Yes.
And it was the dessert that caught my eye specifically.
Same.
It was a walnut apple galette.
It was the star of the show. As much as
Now,
I
the one
loved
thing-
capers on all that chicken, I loved that dessert.
Yes. I was very surprised. It tasted amazing, but it was more of a cake than a galette.
Yes.
A galette is usually like almost more of a pie. Like you've got your pastry, you've got your filling, and then it's like just a little bit folded over.
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of expecting. I was expecting something a little bit more flaky. But I'm not disappointed with what I got.
No, what we got was amazing.
And we had this wonderful, rich, salty umami chicken with some wonderful mushrooms, capers. There was some eggplant in there. I can't remember what the first course was.
Me neither.
The first course there didn't stick with us. I remember the first course at Pizza Culture was some arancini, and those were fantastic.
Oh, the arancini were so good. I could
Yeah,
have just had an
arancini
entire
are just-
dinner of that.
Yeah, a lot of little appetizers are like that, where you have one of them, and you're like,
Can I have more?
why? Why is there only one? I need 99 more, minimum.
I got lots of problems, but 99 of them ain't those. Or pau de queijo.
Same, exactly.
Ugh.
Precisely.
Yeah. We could literally just have an episode about favorite appetizers.
We could.
We could.
We could. Takoyaki would be up there for me.
That takoyaki was like a street food. You could just have it anytime.
Takoyaki is a street food in Japan. Anytime that you find it in a restaurant here in North America, it's almost always as like an appetizer for ramen or sushi or something of that nature.
Interesting. I
And
guess
because
I never
like
noticed.
you just don't find it as street food in North America for obvious reasons. Anytime it's on a menu, I go for it. I zero in on it. I am like, give me those takoyaks.
It is true. You do go for the takoyaki anytime it shows up on any menu.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's really nice that you mentioned that BC cherrywood because I recently have been looking for colognes that smell a little bit more woody. And
Oh, okay.
Okay, so backing up a little bit for a little bit of context here, I have been on this journey of perfumery and colognes for like years, and I have tried all sorts of different independent brands. And
I've been the beneficiary.
yes, you have. So very recently, I discovered a brand, and a lot of them, like this brand seems to have a very clear MO. And their MO is this cologne, no matter which one you choose, should remind you of a clean white shirt. And a
Really?
clean white shirt, like a nice pressed shirt. It should remind you of those qualities. It should be clean. It should smell like a clean white shirt. And I'm like, okay, I'm 100% on board with that imagery. Let's see what they've got. Their perfumes, colognes are very expensive. I ordered 5 samplers. And the samplers are, your standard itty bitty little tiny spray vials. Normally, you get free samplers of these from if you go to Sephora and they happen to just throw one into your package or whatever.
Yeah.
These were $10 each.
And you gave me one of them.
And I gave Angelo one. Why did I give Angelo one? Because, and I want you to listen to these notes. Tobacco leaves, redwood pine, incense, guaiac wood, cedar, vanilla beans.
Yes. Now, the fact that you say that their goal is to look like a clean white shirt, that is not what this smells like at all.
That's very funny because this one to me specifically smells like you're inside the office, the upstairs office where all the dolls work in Violet Evergarden. It's like a cedar lawyery looking office and it's full of smoke.
I definitely get the full of smoke, so I was thinking, if I had to compare it to clothing, I would say it is a burgundy paisley tie.
Ooh, very classy.
Yes, it is. It smells like a fine cigar.
It does. It does actually smell like a cigar. With like
But
a
it's
little
like-
bit of vanilla in it.
Exactly. It's very woody. It is very wood forward with that cigar smoke on the back end. And after a few hours, it mellows out and the vanilla comes through. It is a really pleasant scent, I find, but it's very strong and very situational.
Yes.
Like if you walk into a random place, if you walk into a McDonald's wearing this cologne, suddenly you're the most important person in the room, but also for the wrong reasons. You walk in and everybody's looking, it's like, oh my God, look at how that guy smells. Are they a mobster?
Oh my God. I laugh at the day where you will be mistaken for a mobster.
It could happen.
Especially if you walked into a McDonald's wearing one of your more like anime hoodies. Smelling like this.
That would be a I almost want to say gap moe, but that's incorrect. It's just it would be a juxtaposition that is wrong. You cannot wear this type of cologne with an anime hoodie.
No.
If you were to wear it with any type of anime merch, it has to be a fully tailored JoJo suit. You have to be walking into some place looking like Dio Brando, business Dio Brando, or Kira Yoshikage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be one of the villains.
Yeah, it's very much like a villain vibe or just I'm a very important person vibe. I don't...
Yes.
It's really hard to choose. But like, if you read webtoons, there's this trope of like the very strong, powerful businesswoman who is always immaculately tailored. This is them, especially if they're the bad guy.
Yes.
But like,
absolutely.
Okay, so I gave this to Angelo one night when he was over, and he sprayed it on immediately and started rubbing his wrist, and I was like, I can really smell the vanilla. And I was really tired at this point, so it didn't click in. But the next morning, I was like, DMing Angela. I'm like, I know why the vanilla comes through. It's because you were rubbing your wrists.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to dab your wrists, because otherwise you start breaking up a lot of the molecules a lot faster.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you do the dab, and then you just let it sit and dry and sort of settle into your skin, you get a much different scent journey than if you actually rub your skin together.
Okay, so I took the scent Shinkansen.
A little bit. So, Angelo told me a very interesting like journey of smells like on the way home, and then like what it smelled like the next day after they woke up.
Yeah. Like when Nancy said it was very tobacco forward, at first that sounds off-putting to me. That sounds
sounds off-putting.
It sounds like cigarette smoke or something like that, and it's like, tobacco, what do you mean? When we were driving home, when Dio and I were on our way home, it hit us that no, it is cigar tobacco specifically. You know what I mean?
Yep. It smells expensive.
Yeah, and not burning cigars. No. Like a raw cigar before it is being
lit.
smoked.
It's sort of the same comparison that I make to I like the way coffee grounds smell, but I may not necessarily like coffee after it's been brewed.
Oh, I love both.
Like they both have
actually
very
did a
different
thing.
profiles, right? Like the smell
I
of
can
coffee
talk about
beans.
it next week.
Yeah.
But I bought myself an espresso press.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yes. I was very pleased that the cigar-ness of it came through. And then what did you say you noticed about it when you were going to bed and like the next morning?
So the vanilla was already coming through. In the next morning it had mellowed out quite a bit, but it was still strong. Mm-hmm. And that really came as a surprise to me because most perfumes, the vast majority of perfumes, you spray it on yourself and that smell will be there all night. But you usually don't notice it after about 10 or 15 minutes. This is a cologne where, while it's not offensive, it is not invasive. It stays there. Like you don't get nose blind to it.
It's present.
And I find that really interesting.
Mm-hmm. So the one I gave to Angela was named Beau. And that one has... because of the specific notes that are in it, it has pretty high sillage. Like it's something you're going to smell if you're standing like, 2-3 feet away from someone, but not in an abrasive way. And I use that term very specifically because my nose, the way I smell things, it can easily become very abrasive to me. But the one that I gave Angelo, I gave him specifically because this is more your mood, first of all.
Oh, yes.
Like, yes, I could wear it, but only for extremely specific instances that probably aren't going to come up very often in the next 5 years. It's not that I don't like it, but I do think it suits you better.
It's not something that I can wear every day, explicitly because, like I was saying in that McDonald's scenario, it is not something that you should wear every day. But this is the type of smell where I want to feel like this smell every day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Very much.
Yeah. It puts you into that mental state where it's like, yes, this is how I smell today, and I'm going to act like it.
And I'm going to rock it. I'm going to be this smell. So my current favorite that I have a full-size bottle of from this set, from this perfume house, its notes are bergamot, cardamom.
Oh my.
White tea and black tea.
Oh my.
So I definitely get the smell of like, I would be a clean white shirt, but like a very professional clean white shirt.
Wow. Yes, I can see that.
And I'm really enjoying it. Cardamom is not a scent that's used super often, and it is delicious. It's like there was a little amount of like cardamom ice cream on our dessert when we went to Rouge, and it was so good. And at that time, I was thinking to myself, this tastes exactly like I smell right now. And it was something really strange to get over because you're like, am I eating myself? No, I'm not eating myself. But this tastes and smells amazing at the same time. Cardamom, I think, is one of my new favorite scents.
Nice. That is wonderful. That is a good way to smell.
It's lovely. It's just lovely.
But I think that's about all the time we have for this week, dear listener. So I hope to smell you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.